If you want him, come and claim him.
Oya hun. Neled herain. Dan Carmenig. Aragon. Nedin Dagor. Hen Urir Othari. Natha Dagathair.
Today we're going to talk about the Elvish languages in Tolkien's Middle-earth, one that I've had a lot of questions on. I'm not an expert in Elvish in the Elder language, so forgive me if I get some of these pronunciations wrong. If you would like to look this up on your own, you can actually look for multiple journal articles by Tolkien himself, which I'll tell you more about those at the end of this video. The two Elvish languages in Tolkien's Middle-earth are Quinya and Sindarin. So Quinya represents the original language of the elves more than Sindarin. Sindarin came about from elves that chose not to leave Middle-earth during the Great Journey. The differences can be picked up with pronunciation. Sindarin also underwent some grammatical changes. The split happened when the part of the elves were held up during the Great Journey due to their king, but centuries later reunited with their fellow elves. The Great Journey, if you would like to look this up on your own, also known as the Great March, occurred when elves or the Elder marched from Quinya to Valinor, which Quinya is the place near the Sea of Helcon, and Valinor is the place of their awakening. Quinya is High Elven speech that is spoken in the West, and Sindarin is spoken by the elves who remained in Middle-earth. Galadriel, she speaks Quinya, whereas Legolas speaks only Sindarin. People such as Aragorn can switch between the two depending on who they meet. Sindarin is derived from Quinya, and the writing system is called Tengwar. The basic phrases in Sindarin, if you were going to say hi, it's very easy. It's just ah. If you were going to meet somebody, you might say me govanen. This means well met. If you're going to introduce yourself or ask a question about the other person, you might say man inith lean, which means what is your name? Your answer might be I inith neen, which means my name is, and then you could respond to that. If your name is like mine, it might not directly translate to the Elvish language, but you could look up an Elvish dictionary to see what words would make up your name. For other answers, you might say u for no, or ma. There's multiple words for this, but this can be used for yes. Nai also can be used for maybe. If you were going to thank someone, you would say lin hinan. Or for help, you might say please, which would be an inhel need. If you are refusing something, you might say avon, which means I won't. Or guam, which means let's go, let's do this. Some introductions in Sindarin. If you were going to tell someone where you were born, you would say onen mi. Or if someone asked you, where do you live? You might answer by Dorthon mi. Or if you are welcoming someone and saying you are welcome here, you might say Lenithalim hi. And if you know them, you might say Iston in Iflin, which means I know your face. Now that we've talked a little bit about the basics of Sindarin, we'll talk about Quinya. So Galadriel, she speaks Quinya. Greetings in Quinya are a little bit different. So for instance, hi, you might say Aya, which means hi in direct translation. Or welcome, blessed arrival, Amatulia. Or can you speak Elvish if they're greeting you and asking you if you can consult in the language? You might say Ma istel quite Eldorin. If you want to say I can speak Elvish, you would say Istan quite Eldorin. If someone asked what is your name, you would say man I Celian na. Nanya means my name is, and this is the way you would answer it. If you were going to end the conversation and leave on a positive manner, you might say Sa isa omen tien le, which means pleasure meeting you. In response, the elf might say Han Tanyel, which means I thank you, or Han Tanyel Aren Yalo, which means I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Some side notes about Elvish: sometimes they use informal and formal greetings. For instance, Gisjalen means I greet you, but that's informal. If I said Lisjalen, that means I greet you, but formal. So sometimes, depending on the situation, just like other languages, there can be informal and formal situations. These are just some very small basics of the language of Elven, spoken in Tolkien's Middle-earth. What's amazing is the thought that Tolkien's universe, in a way, was developed around the phonetics and languages that he created. If you would like to know more about the Elven languages, you can read manuscripts Parma Eldalamberon and the Vinyar Tangwar, which were written by Tolkien himself. Learning Elvish is very in-depth and is a very deep subject. I myself haven't had the time to fully study it, and disclaimer, forgive my pronunciation, I'm not an expert in the Elven language of Tolkien. If you are, I would love to hear from you and hear your pronunciation on some of the Elven language in Quinya and Sindarin. Also, what are your thoughts on the Elven language? A thought that's always come to mind is it's amazing how Tolkien's universes have developed from the languages he created. If you would like to know more about fantasy fiction such as Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, The Witcher, subscribe to Chase and Josh Factor Fantasy Podcast. The link is in the bio, or you can subscribe to Ridiculous Patronus on YouTube. Thank you, everyone. Have a magical week.